With their backs against the wall, facing elimination in Boston, Trae Young and the Hawks kept the series alive with some brilliant play down the stretch. It took a couple games, but it's clear that Trae has sort of figured out this defense and made some key adjustments in his attack to generate offense at a high level. To start this series, it was pretty clear that Boston's versatility really bothered Trae. He comes off a screen and waits for Horford to make a decision, thinking he has a free lane to the cup, but getting rejected from behind by Derek White. Pretty much everyone in the Celtics is big and athletic with real chops as a rim protector, so when Young comes off a screen, he's so worried about Brown in rear pursuit that he rushes into a botched finish. They had him overthinking every move. Even though he gets White on his backside, he's uncomfortable and throws up a weird offhand floater. And instead of looking to finish, he would very commonly get into his attack with the intention of seeking out contact and playing for the whistle. What this did is it sped him up. He started game one with a few early turnovers, rushing tough and risky passes that just can't make it through that caliber of defense. Remember, he's limited in size, so he can't see over the top of the defense, tossing a careless lob straight into the hands of Rob Williams. This wasn't just as a passer, but also in his attack. He comes off a screen and sees that he has space to build up a head of steam, but there's just no angle, so he ends up running into nothing. And with all of that length and athleticism on the floor, a lot of his routine reads were being taken away. He's made this exact same play thousands of times, driving before scooping a lob pass off the floor, but Marcus Smart's able to swat it away. This time he's got the ball right outside the paint with two defenders on him and a big man in the middle, a pretty standard dump off that Smart again takes away. This had him sort of rattled, looking real indecisive, which is out of his nature. He loses his man in the pick and roll, turning the play into a 2-on-1, which is where he's at his best, but instead of taking advantage, he just doesn't really know what to do. For years now, perhaps Trae's best skill as a player has been his ability to get into the heart of the defense and make plays from inside. And while the Celtics did a good job of making this difficult once he got there, they also implemented a strategy to keep him as far away from the paint as possible. As he goes to work in isolation, Smart shrinks the court by stepping way over to the free throw line, forcing a drive right, where Brown jabs at the ball to help force a turnover. Watch Brogdon come all the way over from the opposite wing to force Trae into an outside angle, where he again loses the ball to the corner. This time, with the help of a screen, both Brown and Brogdon sort of zone up the middle of the floor, so Young instead elects to step back into a three. You'll notice that most of these help plays are being made at the nail, and that's because he's at his best driving at the middle. Smart gaps way off of his man to cut off the angle, again forcing him into a less efficient step back jumper. Here's how it looked when they weren't aggressively clogging those lanes. He's able to work all the way to the front of the restricted area for a routine floater. And on this one, he uses a hesitation dribble to get the step on Brown all the way to the rim for a finger roll. Like we saw in last year's Miami series though, once Trae's lanes get taken away, he'll often settle for real tough shots. And like the Heat, Boston's one of those teams that likes to switch, so he'll often try to beat the matchup change by rushing deep threes. As Collins comes up to set a screen, he's actually expecting the switch to happen and thinks he has a window, but Tatum stays high and sends it away. Although these are typically pretty bad shots, he of course has that ability to occasionally knock them down. And that's the thing, although the Celtics did a really good job, he still had some success in the high pick and roll, particularly when he was able to beat his man at the point of attack and play that game of cat and mouse with opposing bigs. He steps to the mid-range as if looking to pull up, drawing Horford to the ball and Smart from the corner, freeing up a kickout to a wide open shooter. This one's just classic Trae Young, using the same screen twice to leave White in the dust and set up Capella with a lob over the top. At some point, he came to the realization that Boston's perimeter defenders just aren't agile enough to stay in front of him, so he carried that into the next 3 games and relentlessly went to it over and over again. He takes Brogdon in isolation and draws a weak side rotation, countering with a soft touch pass to Okongwu down low. In semi-transition, Atlanta has an empty corner, so instead of using a screen and driving middle, he sets up White before rejecting it, giving him the step he needs to set up a high-level interior dime. Over the first 2 games in this series, he was driving 20 times a game, which is already a large number, but in his last 3, that's gone up to over 27, which is absolutely absurd. And there was a newfound level of patience in these attacks, mapping the court to make the best decisions possible. After beating Horford off the dribble, he doesn't rush into a quick finish, instead keeping that dribble live as he probes across the paint, and finding Hunter for a corner 3. When he keeps his handle and plays with pace like this, there's just so much pressure on the defense, and one slight mishap is all it takes for a real high quality shot. Remember that earlier example where Trae got White on his backside and forced an awkward floater, this time using his body to put him in jail and working his way in close for a free 2 points. It's at this speed when his in-between game is most lethal. Instead of getting all the way to the rim, he's more than comfortable floating it from just a step or 2 out. And this helps him read off-ball rotations much better as well. Instead of turning the corner off a screen, he first pauses to see if White's going to slide over to the nail, and finds a lane to get downhill. Here it is again, waiting for White to make a decision, and getting both feet in the paint before lobbing it up top. With a heavy emphasis on driving into the defense as much as possible, he then uses those jumpers as a weapon to counter instead of rushing them. When Boston switches the action, he seems to be stepping into one of those bombs, but instead moves it over to a wide open teammate on the wing. The same thing this time. Boston's in a zone and Hauser slides over to pick up Trae on the ball, and instead of using that small window to launch a 3, he just gives it up to a shooter with a lot more room. Another thing he's figured out as the series has progressed is Boston's soft switching, hunting for favorable matchups and going to work. Atlanta sets up with that empty corner to give Trae space, so that when a much slower Horford picks him up on a switch, he can just explode right by him for a layup line. Although Horford can hold his own against most perimeter players, Young is just too quick, and in one hesitation dribble, he completely discards him. He starts this possession against Smart, walks into a switch against Brown before bringing Rob Williams into the action with a second screen, but he plays it in a drop, leaving open the pull-up triple. When Trae has that comfort to play with patience in the pick and roll, it's really difficult to stop him from generating a quality look on almost every single possession. But before we get into that, I want to give a quick shout out to Basketball Index for helping with this analysis. If you're not familiar with the site, they provide tons of statistical measurements, tools, and easily accessible graphics. They also offer various talent grades, and through their player profiles tab, I can easily compare them to other players around the league. Using Trae's playmaking as an example, on this page I'm presented with various metrics detailing his ability to create for others, along with how he stacks up against his peers. By signing up with the code VENUE30, you can get 30% off your first month subscription, so I'll leave a link in the description below for anyone interested. And with that being said, let's take a look at how Young has been attacking the Celtics as a pick and roll ball handler. Most commonly, Boston's point of attack defenders are chasing him over the top of screens with a big playing drop, but that gives him the middle of the floor to work with. On this one, he blows right by White to build up speed at a backpedaling Horford for some float game, but he's just as effective when slowed down, pausing to see if Horford's coming out to meet him before stepping into a push shot from the elbow. It's the same thing when that coverage is brought a bit higher, patiently probing with his dribble while staring down DeJounte on the weak side to open up an amazing pass down low. By coming up to the level of the screen, Capella's able to slip behind the defense, and Trae hesitates to let him get the step before perfectly placing a lob. Using his handle to pull multiple defenders with him in these actions has been key, and leaves DeAndre Hunter with perhaps the most open shot he's ever taken. As long as he keeps getting into the middle of the defense like this, there's just no way for Boston to counter. Tatum slides down from the opposite corner to take away a lob, and it's a mid-air fastball to yet another open shooter. And if his matchup counters by instead going under the screen, that's when you'll see him utilize that lethal off the dribble 3-point game. Effectively punishing a defense of this caliber will always rely on some level of tough shot making, and as we've seen time and time again, most notably down the stretch of Game 5, Trae has that and then some, knocking down some video game-esque looks. Another necessity is teammates stepping up. If they're comfortable putting 2 on the ball and conceding a wide open jumper, it's on those role players to capitalize. The Celtics go back to that aggressive gapping at the nail to not let Trae drive, so when the ball gets swung to Hunter, that draws a longer closeout, putting it down for a healthy pull-up jumper. His off-the-catch mid-range game has come up huge. This time off a skip pass out of the pick and roll, he attacks a closeout before rising up over the top of a contest. A combination of leaning into that downhill game, playing with patience as a decision maker, mental adjustments, and some top-notch shot making has helped Trae level up during these games against the Celtics. During those first 2 matches, he averaged just 20 points, 7 assists, and 5 turnovers on abysmal shooting efficiency, while the team's offense struggled mightily. But in 3 games since, it's like a tale of 2 different players, putting up 35 and 12 while taking care of the ball and scoring at a relatively efficient rate. And Atlanta's offense has certainly reaped the benefits. So despite a poor start, Trae has sort of figured out this defense and adjusted to generate offense for his team as they fight to stay alive. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Trae Young. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.